So recently we had reports that the HBO Harry Potter show was going to be race-swapping Severus Snape. Snape being described in the books as being pale, as having sallow skin. And so when they cast Papa Isidu as Snape, Harry Potter fans overwhelmingly said this is not accurate. They said we're kinda sick and tired of this sort of thing happening. And a lot of them are saying that the Harry Potter show is dead on arrival now, and they might be right. And I've done a video or two on this before. Look, none of the Outrage is directed specifically at Papa Isidu. It's directed at the studios. The whole thing is just another race swap, which is a game that fans have seen Hollywood play enough times at this point, and frankly they're sick of it. Well, it looks like we're going to have another casting that might top that. So I'm going to jump to that Park Place here. And this headline reads, Barbie director rumored to pick Meryl Streep to play gender-swapped Aslan in Narnia reboot. That's right folks, the lion in the Chronicles of Narnia is going to get gender-swapped, it looks like. And now here we have the first major red flag for this adaptation. Actually no, I take that back. The first red flag was Amy Pascal describing the adaptation as a very new take on Narnia, and that it's all about rock and roll. Actually no, I take that back. Them announcing Greta Gerwig as the director for this project. Greta Gerwig, who directed the feminist Barbie movie. That was the first major red flag. Actually no, I take that back. Netflix announcing that they're going to be making an adaptation for Chronicles of Narnia. That was the first major red flag. Because look folks, at this point we all get a huge sense of dread whenever we hear that any beloved story or franchise is going to be getting adapted onto the big screen. Let's just face it, we all dread it now because we know Hollywood is going to poison it. We know they're going to screw it up. We know they're going to purposely change it. They're going to put modern messaging into it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this statement right here, Amy Pascal, a very new take on Narnia, and revealed that it's all about rock and roll. A very new take on Narnia. I mean, lines like that are dead giveaways at this point. Lines like this have been dead giveaways for, I don't know, the last few years, last handful of years now. Because we've seen Hollywood do this enough times now. They adapt a story onto the big screen. They make it woke. They update it for modern audiences. They say they're going to reimagine it. They're going to give a very new take. It's really all just code for they're going to be injecting their own ideology into it or their own messaging into it, that sort of thing. I mean, fans know the game by now. Oh, and the Narnia project is going to be all about rock and roll. It's been a little while, I have to admit, but I'm pretty sure that Chronicles of Narnia is not about rock and roll. I don't know, you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's not what it's about. Okay, but I'm going to get back to this article on that Park Place. I'm not going to read the entire thing. They'll give you the rundown and it brings up a good point or two in here. So, Greta Gerwig, director of Barbie, is reportedly planning to gender swap Aslan, the lion who represents a Christ-like figure in C.S. Lewis's iconic Chronicles of Narnia series, for her upcoming Netflix adaptation of The Magician's Nephew. According to Nexus Point News, none other than Meryl Streep is in talks to voice the reimagined Aslan. Reimagined. Netflix, in partnership with Gerwig, appears to be taking Narnia in a drastically different direction. Lewis, a devout Christian, infused his novels with unmistakable Christian allegory. Aslan, the great lion, is not just a guide or wise creature. He is a literal stand-in for Jesus Christ in Lewis's fictional universe, sacrificing himself in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to atone for the sins of Edmund Pevance. He's shaved, beaten, and ridiculed while strapped to the stone table where his life ends, only to rise again in a powerful allusion to the resurrection. And yeah, I'd say I follow Tolkien's works more than C.S. Lewis's, but I know C.S. Lewis, he was a very devout Christian. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis were friends. They were two members of the Inklings, and C.S. Lewis used to be an atheist, and Tolkien was largely responsible for converting him into a very devout Christian. Him and I think Owen Barfield too helped convert C.S. Lewis. Off the top of my head, that's what I've read, but you'd have to check on that. But anyway, C.S. Lewis was a real devout Christian. I have a strange feeling that the Christian allegories in Chronicles of Narnia are going to get reduced or taken out. I don't know, we'll see though. I mean, changing the lion, gender swapping the lion, I mean, you might call that a pretty big step in doing that. Swapping the gender of Aslan does not just change the character, it rewrites the spiritual heart of the entire series. This move, if confirmed, would mark one of the most radical reinterpretations of a beloved literary figure in recent memory. While adaptations are always subject to creative license, few stories are as steeped in religious symbolism as Narnia. Aslan isn't just male because Lewis flipped a coin. His masculinity is intentionally tied to the Christian symbolism behind the character. And if they do gender swap the lion, I'm sure you'll have people saying, I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't the lion be a woman? Why not? Because C.S. Lewis didn't write the lion that way, that's why. And if you don't like that, I don't care. It is C.S. Lewis's story, so when you adapt C.S. Lewis's story, you stick to what he wrote, period. And same thing with J.R.R. Tolkien for that matter. Rings of Power? They're not following Tolkien's writings, they're not remotely following them. The War of the Rohirrim movie, they took the story of Helm Hammerhand and they girl-bossed it. They made his unnamed daughter the main character. Helm Hammerhand wasn't even the main character in his own story. Why do we Lord of the Rings fans have a problem with that? Because that's not how the story of Helm Hammerhand was written. That story was about Helm Hammerhand, not his unnamed daughter. And in the case of Tolkien, yeah, I would say it's mostly male characters in the story in the world. Not that there aren't any women, of course there are, but I would say most of the characters are men. And you know what? I don't care if you don't like that, because it's Tolkien's story, not yours. So if you're going to adapt Tolkien's work, you stick to what Tolkien wrote, period. And same thing applies to C.S. Lewis here, same thing applies to any other author or creator out there. In the 2005 to 2010 Walden Media films, Liam Neeson voiced the lion with quiet power and authority, emphasizing Aslan's sacrificial and redemptive role. Now with Gerwig reportedly bringing on Meryl Streep, who hasn't appeared in the film since 2021's Don't Look Up, the portrayal could pivot toward a completely different tone. And it's not just the casting. Reports say Gerwig's adaptation of The Magician's Nephew will be the first in her 2-movie Netflix deal, though Netflix apparently plans to produce 8 Narnia films in total, with or without her. Other names rumored to be in the cast include Daniel Craig, Charlie XCX, and Saoirse Ronan. Streep, a 21-time Oscar nominee, has lately been focused on I don't care. Here's the main point though. Make no mistake, changing Aslan's gender, especially under the direction of someone whose last project was the aggressively feminist Barbie, will be seen by many as a deliberate act of ideological reimagining. That's because it would be a deliberate act of ideological reimagining. Aslan, the lion in the Chronicles of Narnia, he's a man, or a male lion. The only way that you get that wrong is if you do it intentionally. It's not that hard to cast a guy to voice the lion. It's not. You have to be purposely miscasting that character. To swap the gender of such an overt Christ allegory in a beloved Christian fantasy series isn't just revision, it's provocation. If Gerwig and Netflix proceed with this casting, they may be inviting a storm of criticism from longtime fans, faith-based audiences, and even casual viewers who simply want faithful adaptations. Oh no, not they may be, they will be getting a storm of criticism. In fact, I'd say they already are. Because again, it's not that hard to have a man voice the lion. It's not. The only way you get that wrong is if you do it on purpose. And some people will say, it's a fantasy world. Why can't the lion be a female? Because the lion was a male in the books. Because C.S. Lewis wrote the lion as a male, that's why. It is not your story, it is not Netflix's story, it is not Greta Gerwig's story, it is C.S. Lewis's story. So when you adapt C.S. Lewis's story, you stick to what C.S. Lewis wrote, period. What this comes down to is Netflix, Greta Gerwig, they're taking somebody else's story and they're injecting their own messaging or their own ideology into it, into someone else's work. And the act of taking somebody else's work and injecting your messages, your ideology into it is completely and utterly disrespectful to that author. That's why we all have such a problem with this. And this is going to be the same game all over again. Hollywood announces they're adapting a story, then the fans hear that they're going to be making changes to it. Fans object to those changes. Hollywood then calls the fans names. Hollywood gaslights the fans. The access media gets their marching orders and they follow suit. Next thing you know, the studio working on this adaptation is fighting with the fans, the very people they need to rely on for this adaptation to be a success. They fight with the fans, and then the fans say, nope, I'm not watching this, I'm not giving you my money, and then the adaptation flops. And then oftentimes when it flops, the studio or the people working on it, they'll blame the fans for not liking their slop. C.S. Lewis's work is next, looks like. I mean, this show, we had already seen some red flags for it. The simple fact that they're even making an adaptation, that alone is enough for fans to be filled with dread. And now with this news or this rumor, yeah, this adaptation, it's dead on arrival. This is not going to go over well with fans at all. In fact, if you're looking at reactions for this, no one out there supports this idea. And is Hollywood ever going to learn to respect the original author's work? Whether it be C.S. Lewis, whether it be Tolkien, whether it be a creator like George Lucas, will they ever learn? Will they ever learn to just stay faithful to the books, or to just stay faithful to that creator's vision? So far, we're not really seeing any signs that Hollywood's learning anything. And since they're clearly not learning anything, to be quite honest, I really don't want to see any adaptations. I will take having no adaptation at all over having a terrible, unfaithful, disrespectful adaptation any day. I mean, that's just me, but I'm willing to bet a lot of people agree with me on that. Bye, everyone.